Right now, you are probably breathing fresh air. Humans have this weird habit of setting plants on fire and inhaling the spicy air. Your thinky brain knows inhaling smoke is terrible for your health, but your animal brain sees a funny little leaf and decides to burn it. This is basically the entire history of how we started smoking. We look at ancient people and assume they were only hunting mammoths, but they were also trying to get a quick dopamine hit from nature. The emotional part of our brain always chases things that feel good right now. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors found crispy weeds that made their brains go completely wild. Before we begin, take just 1 second to subscribe. Now let's begin. So when exactly did humans start breathing in fumes on purpose? Scientists originally thought it happened around 3,000 years ago, but recent research completely destroyed that timeline. In the dry deserts of Utah, researchers dug up an ancient campfire pit. Inside this old dirt, they found burnt seeds of a wild tobacco plant. Through science, they dated these tiny seeds back to 12,300 years ago. That is a very long time to be coughing in a cave. This means our ancestors were using weeds during the Ice Age. Imagine freezing your toes off while dodging angry animals and deciding you need a smoke break. Your limbic system was working overtime to cope with the stress of existing. Life back then was incredibly dangerous. Humans did not have fancy internet distractions. They only had rocks and weird plants growing near their camps. And out of pure curiosity, someone threw those spicy leaves into the flames. Why did they keep doing it after the first awful cough? The answer is biological hacking. Tobacco contains a sneaky chemical called nicotine. When you inhale this smoke, it reaches your brain in roughly 10 to 20 seconds. That is faster than you can realize what a mistake you made. Once it breaks into your brain, it mimics a natural chemical and presses all the happy buttons. Your limbic system gets flooded with a massive wave of dopamine. Dopamine is the reward that makes you feel accomplished when you finish a hard task. Except this plant bypasses the hard work and hands out free rewards. Your rational brain might scream that inhaling fire is very dangerous, but your emotional brain is a powerful beast that only cares about feeling good right now. It completely overpowers logic because the instant reward feels amazing. Evolution simply did not prepare our monkey brains for free dopamine. There was another wildly practical reason our ancestors kept smoking. Before modern medicine, humans were loaded with horrible intestinal parasites. Research shows that nicotine is actually a brutal natural pesticide. Plants evolved to produce it specifically to poison hungry insects. So when ancient people smoked, they were accidentally killing the bugs living inside their stomachs. It was a bizarre prehistoric healthcare system. Shamans also quickly realized that consuming massive amounts of tobacco caused intense hallucinations. The thinky part of their brain would shut down entirely. They genuinely believed the extreme dizziness was a direct phone call from the spirit world. So smoking became a deeply sacred religious practice. You take a plant meant to poison beetles and turn it into a magical bridge to the gods. Today, over 1 billion humans still smoke, but they are mostly just stressed out instead of fighting ancient ghosts. For thousands of years, this weird habit stayed locked away in the Americas. Native tribes traded these dried leaves like they were precious gold. They rolled them into massive tubes and smoked them during important meetings or peace treaties. It was the ultimate icebreaker before signing serious agreements. Then a very lost explorer named Christopher Columbus showed up in the year 1492. The native people greeted him by handing over a bunch of dried tobacco leaves. Since Columbus had zero idea what these brown leaves were, he actually threw them away. But his sailors quickly noticed the locals walking around with smoke pouring out of their noses. Humans are incredibly easily influenced by peer pressure, so the sailors tried it and instantly fell victim to the free dopamine cheat code. When they sailed back to Europe, they brought this highly addictive plant with them. The limbic system of an entire continent was about to get completely hijacked. Once the spicy leaves reached Europe, people lost their absolute minds. Doctors in the 1500s actually believed smoking was a miracle cure for literally everything. A French ambassador named Jean Nicot heavily promoted this plant to the royal family. He claimed it could cure headaches, toothaches, and stomach problems. Because of his massive marketing campaign, scientists eventually named the addictive chemical nicotine in his honor. Imagine being remembered forever as the guy who got everyone hooked on toxic fumes. The thinky part of the brain back then had almost no real medical science to work with. So when people felt that instant relaxing wave of chemical rewards, they assumed they were getting healthier. They ignored the heavy coughing because the vibes were simply too good to pass up. By the 1600s, people were planting tobacco everywhere and trading it globally. For a long time, smoking was actually quite annoying to prepare. You had to chop the leaves and pack them into pipes or roll them by hand. This slow process kept people from chain smoking a dozen times a day. But then the Industrial Revolution happened and ruined our lungs forever. In the year 1880, a man named James Bonsack invented the first automated cigarette rolling machine. Before his machine, a fast worker could only roll maybe 200 cigarettes in a single shift. This new mechanical beast could easily crank out 120,000 perfectly rolled tubes every single day. This massive flood of cheap products completely changed human history. Suddenly, the dopamine sticks were highly affordable and extremely easy to carry around. Your limbic system no longer had to wait for a complicated pipe ritual to feel good. You could just pull a ready-made paper tube out of your pocket whenever you felt slightly stressed. The real explosion of this habit happened during the massive global wars of the 20th century. Governments literally gave free cigarettes to soldiers to keep them calm in the terrible trenches. When millions of surviving young men came back home, they brought their heavy addictions with them. Advertising companies noticed this huge audience and completely weaponized human psychology. They paid famous actors, rich athletes, and even doctors to tell you that smoking made you look incredibly cool. They convinced the thinky brain that inhaling toxic smoke was a symbol of pure freedom and high social status. So your logical brain defended the habit while your animal brain enjoyed the chemical hooks. By the 1950s, almost half of the adult population in developed countries was smoking regularly. It became deeply wired into daily normal life, instead of being a weird ancient ritual. But eventually, the thinky part of the human brain got real science to fight back. For decades, people were coughing heavily and ignoring the obvious signs of disease. Then in the year 1964, a huge medical report was released to the public. The government officially announced that smoking was causing terrible lung diseases. This shattered the illusion that inhaling burnt leaves was somehow healthy. The rational brain had undeniable proof that the instant dopamine was a deadly long-term threat. But remember, the monkey brain does not care about what happens 30 years from now. It only cares about feeling relaxed, right this exact second. So a massive war started inside millions of human heads. Governments banned cool television advertisements and put scary warnings on the boxes. But people kept buying them because fighting a chemical dependency requires massive willpower. The emotional system was absolutely refusing to let go of its favorite toy. Quitting this habit is unbelievably hard because your brain thinks it is dying without it. When you stop giving your limbic system its dose of free happy chemicals, it throws a massive tantrum. It sends out intense panic signals that make you feel anxious, angry, and incredibly sad. Comma used there for a list of miserable feelings. Your brain predicts its future mood and assumes you will be completely miserable forever. This is exactly like the procrastination process, where repairing your current mood takes priority. The thinky part tries to explain that your lungs are healing and the future will be great. But your emotional brain acts like a giant baby screaming for a candy bar right now. Research shows that it takes around 2 weeks for the physical addiction to finally break. Yet the psychological desire to fix a bad mood instantly can hide in your memories for many years. You are fighting evolution that wired you to always chase immediate pleasure. Because humans are incredibly stubborn, we found a brand new way to trick our biology. In the year 2003, a man invented the modern electronic cigarette. Instead of burning dirty leaves, we figured out how to vaporize liquid chemicals with tiny batteries. It is basically the same biological hack, but wrapped in bright plastic and fruity flavors. Your thinky brain looks at a strawberry-flavored robot stick and assumes it is completely harmless, but it is just delivering that same addictive nicotine straight into your bloodstream. The limbic system does not care if the reward comes from an ancient campfire or a fancy gadget. It just feels the dopamine rush and demands that you keep repeating the action forever. Millions of teenagers and adults are hopelessly trapped in this modern version of prehistoric smoking. We reinvented the ancient fire stick because we still cannot handle our daily stress. The technology is very new, but the emotional weakness is thousands of years old. So there you have the entire ridiculous history of human beings inhaling random plant smoke. It all started around 12,000 years ago because the natural world was terrifying and we just wanted to relax. Our rational brains eventually figured out that setting things on fire and breathing the ashes was a terrible idea. We literally have decades of absolute medical proof showing that it destroys our fragile physical bodies. But the animal part of our brain still acts like a stubborn toddler throwing a huge tantrum over free dopamine. We went from ancient shamans speaking to ghosts all the way to sad modern workers vaping in office bathrooms. The human brain is a brilliant survival machine that somehow keeps falling for the exact same chemical trap. You basically have a massive supercomputer in your head that gets easily defeated by a spicy leaf. What do you think about this? Comment your thoughts. Did you get value from this video? If so, hit the like button and subscribe for more.